This man can see visions of an upcoming disaster, but as he struggles to differentiate between what's real and what's not, time is running out. A man named Curtis is standing outside of his house watching a massive storm brewing in the distance. It starts to rain, but instead of water, it's raining what appears to be something like motor oil. This is revealed to be just a vision that Curtis is having. He is actually standing in the shower. He has breakfast with his wife Samantha and his daughter Hannah, who can't speak or hear, and goes to work. He works in a construction company along with his friend Duart. Duart and Curtis decide to end their workday early on account of rain and spend the night drinking beers and discussing their lives. Duart reveals that he and his wife are considering doing a threesome, and Curtis has a hard time topping that. However, Duart tells him that he has a good life, and that is the highest compliment a man can receive. Not as high as a threesome, Duart. Curtis comes home and asks Samantha how Hannah's day went. She replies that Hannah is still struggling to connect with the other kids due to her disability. She also reveals that Hannah caught a board with nails in it from the trash lying out back, and Curtis promises to clean it up on the weekend. Next, as Curtis is cleaning up the pile, he sees a massive tornado forming in the distance. The family dog starts barking at it, and suddenly, it becomes so riled up that it breaks its rope and rushes forward, biting Curtis in the arm. Curtis wakes up, and it is all revealed to be a dream, but from that point on, he starts feeling resentment toward the dog. He also repeatedly checks his arm at the spot where the dog bit it in the dream. At work, Curtis's boss reprimands him for ending work early on account of rain the day before, because now they are behind schedule. He orders Curtis and Duart to get the job done today by working overtime. As the two are working, Curtis notices a massive swarm of birds flying in a peculiar manner. He asks Duart if he's ever seen birds flying like that, but Duart is too busy with his work to notice. Next, Curtis forgets that he was supposed to go to Hannah's sign language class, and Samantha gets mad at him for being late. He manages to bring her around with his charming personality. Afterward, Curtis is driving Hannah somewhere in the rain when a person appears in front of their car, causing Curtis to steer off the road and crash. He wakes up to discover that Hannah is fine, but then suddenly, some people start attacking their car. A woman abducts Hannah while a man appears behind Curtis and starts choking him. Then, Curtis wakes up, and this is all revealed to be a dream. But even after waking up, Curtis has a hard time breathing for a while. Curtis arrives in the kitchen, and Samantha notices that he's sweating profusely. She assumes that he is sick and tells him to stay home while she and Hannah go out. While his wife and daughter are gone, Curtis builds a doghouse, puts a fence around it, and places the dog in there. He then curiously examines the old underground storm shelter out back. When Samantha returns, she asks why Curtis has suddenly decided to keep the dog outside, when it has always been an indoor animal. Curtis refuses to give her a straight answer, and when she insists on the question, Curtis reminds her that it's his dog, not hers. Next, Curtis sees Hannah looking out of the window, and when he comes closer, he sees a man standing outside. Scared, he grabs Hannah, but suddenly, all the doorknobs start turning as if people are trying to come in. Then, the furniture starts flying as if the house is falling. Curtis wakes up again, revealing it all to be a dream. But this time, he sees that he's wet his bed. Samantha comes into the room, and seeing the state of Curtis, she becomes worried. She insists that she will not be leaving Hannah with him today as she was intending to, but Curtis gets angry and says that he is fine. Samantha reminds him that just because he is sick does not mean that he gets to be rude to her. Next, Curtis takes Hannah to the library and grabs some books on mental illness. On the way back, he also grabs a bunch of canned food from the grocery store. He gets late for dinner with Samantha's parents, and Samantha gets angry. Afterward, Curtis decides to clean out the old storm shelter. He stores the canned food there and spends the entire night reading the books he checked out. Samantha notices this. The next day, Curtis goes to see his doctor and asks him for some medication to help him sleep. The doctor is hesitant to give him anything and prescribes exercise, but Curtis then tells him about the dreams. He says he had a dream that his dog bit him on the arm and his arm kept hurting in that spot the whole day. He also mentions the dream that made him wet the bed, and the doctor's face suddenly becomes serious. As he writes the prescription, he curiously asks Curtis when he last went to see his mother. Curtis replies that it's been over a month. The doctor gives him a prescription for a mild sedative and also the number of a psychiatrist in Columbus. Meanwhile, Samantha confirms with the insurance company that Curtis's insurance will cover the cost of Hannah's cochlear implant, and she is overjoyed. The insurance worker tells her that she is very lucky because her husband's job gives them great insurance, the kind that many jobs do not. When Curtis returns home, Samantha gives him a warm kiss and tells him that she loves him. Of course you do, now that you know he has great insurance. Curtis is also happy to hear of Hannah's implant news. He takes the pills and has his first good night's sleep in a week. He wakes up next morning in a good mood and goes off to work. At work, Curtis randomly asks DeWart how much food a human would need to survive for a week. DeWart doesn't understand why Curtis is asking such questions. Then, Curtis hears incredibly loud thunder and gets frustrated that their work will be interrupted again. However, DeWart says he doesn't hear anything. Curtis looks up and sees that the sky is clear and there is not a cloud in sight for miles. He hears the thunder again, and when DeWart doesn't even flinch, he realizes that only he can hear it. He starts having a panic attack and runs away, confusing DeWart. He throws up and then drives away as fast as he can while having trouble breathing. Next, he arrives at a nursing home to see his mother. The conversation between the two reveals that Curtis's mother was diagnosed with schizophrenia at about the same age that Curtis is now. He asks her how it started for her and if she had any scary dreams. She says that she never had any dreams, but she was always panicky, always felt that people were listening to her or watching her. On the way home, Curtis calls his doctor and asks if he knows anyone that can help him locally, because Columbus is too far. At night, while Samantha sleeps, Curtis makes a list of all the things he needs to build a rugged tornado shelter out back, and realizes he doesn't have enough money for it. Obsessing over the idea, the next day, he goes to the bank and gets a loan to build the shelter. His manager warns him against doing this, but he says he really needs this money. After the bank, Curtis arrives for work and apologizes to DeWart for running off the day before. During their break, Curtis tells DeWart that he needs help building a tornado shelter in his backyard. DeWart inquires why he wants to do that, and he replies it's just something he has to do. He'll borrow some tools from work and rent the rest. DeWart agrees to help, but expresses concern regarding Curtis's well-being. Next, Curtis arrives to see a counselor named Kendra. Kendra is about to ask some basic questions, but Curtis says he's already read up on the symptoms of schizophrenia, and he's only displaying 2 out of the 5 needed for a diagnosis, so he's probably only having a brief psychotic break. He just needs to know what he has to take to get this under control. Kendra says she is just a counselor, so she can't prescribe medicine. She can either refer him to a psychiatrist or he can try talking to her, which is a good place to start helping. Curtis tells her about when his mom was first diagnosed with schizophrenia. He was only 10 and she left him in a car all by himself at a grocery store and ran away. Weeks later, she was caught eating out of a trash can. Next, Curtis is driving home with Samantha and Hannah sleeping in the back and sees massive lightning going off in the distance. He wonders if it's really happening or he's just hallucinating. Curtis and DeWart begin working on the tornado shelter, and just then, Samantha arrives home. She is outraged when she learns that Curtis started this whole project and took out a loan without consulting her. She finally breaks down and pleads with him to give her an explanation for all of his strange behavior lately. Curtis deflects the question and goes to bed. Before sleeping, he takes his pills, but he takes more than the recommended amount. At night, he has a seizure and starts bleeding from the mouth, freaking Samantha out. Once he's stabilized, he admits that he hasn't been completely honest with her. He tells her that he's been having horrible dreams lately, which always start with a mighty storm accompanied by a motor oil-like rain, which seems to make people crazy. They then attack him and Hannah. He says that these dreams aren't dreams to him. They're a feeling. He feels like something horrible is coming, and he has to protect her and Hannah. Samantha asks what the dream was tonight, and he says that he saw DeWart attacking him. He reveals that he's been seeing a counselor because he promised himself that he would not abandon Hannah like his mom abandoned him. Finally, he pleads with Samantha to just bear with him. Next, they schedule Hannah's cochlear implant surgery and get a slot for 6 weeks later. Curtis arrives at work and starts experiencing negative feelings toward DeWart due to his dream, so he requests his boss to take DeWart off his team. He goes to the store and purchases some gas masks to keep in the shelter. Meanwhile, word starts getting around about his strange behavior. Curtis's brother Kyle comes to check up on him upon Samantha's request, and Curtis assures him that he is fine. He tells Kyle to take the dog with him for his daughters before he leaves. Later at night, Curtis has a horrifying dream about Samantha, and the next morning, he starts feeling some kind of way about her too. Samantha notices this. Angry over Curtis removing him from his team, DeWart informs Curtis's boss that he's been using equipment from work for a home project, and Curtis gets fired. His boss also reveals that DeWart has been suspended for 2 weeks without pay. When Samantha learns that Curtis's health insurance will run out before Hannah's surgery, she is outraged. She slaps Curtis, grabs Hannah, and leaves. Curtis arrives to speak to Kendra, but discovers that she is transferred. He feels incredibly frustrated and alone. Curtis continues working on the shelter. Samantha returns and inquires if she was in one of his dreams. He confirms it. She asks if he can deal with it, and he responds by grabbing her hand and pulling her close. Curtis asks if she is going to leave him, and she says she won't. She says they are both going to find jobs and find a way to extend the insurance so that it covers Hannah's surgery. She adds that she wants him to see a proper psychiatrist, not just a counselor at the free clinic. Next, the family arrives at a public gathering to regain some sense of normalcy, but DeWart is there, who is very angry with Curtis. He attacks Curtis, and Curtis tries to apologize and calm him down, but he doesn't listen. Eventually, Curtis lashes out. He kicks DeWart down, flips a table, and gives a roaring speech about how he is not crazy and there is a storm coming for which none of them are prepared. After his breakdown, he sees his daughter's scared face and realizes what he's become. He cries, and Samantha comforts him and takes him away. Next, Curtis has a dream about the storm again, and this time he sees birds falling from the sky and hears sirens sounding in the distance. Samantha wakes him up, and it is revealed that sirens are actually sounding and a real storm is coming. The family rushes to the shelter. Curtis locks the door and tells the other two to put on gas masks, which they don't understand, but he insists. They spend the night in the shelter, and the next day Samantha tells Curtis that the storm has passed, so he can take off his mask and open the shelter door. He is hesitant to do either of those things because he believes that the storm is not over. He says that he can still hear it and even feel the thunder, but Samantha tells him that she cannot, which means he's hallucinating. He starts breaking down. He admits that he cannot open the door and offers the keys to Samantha, but she says if he cannot open that door, then nothing is going to change. He needs to do this for his family. Curtis goes against every fiber of his body, telling him not to open the door, and unlocks it. He comes out and sees that the sky is clear and his neighbors are cleaning their yards. Samantha comes out and hugs him. Next, Samantha and Curtis arrive at the office of a psychiatrist, and he advises them to go on a vacation and get Curtis away from the shelter that he's been obsessing over. However, he adds that when Curtis returns, he will have to check into a proper facility for treatment which will last for some time. Curtis is devastated that he'll have to leave his family, which is the one thing that he did not want to do. The family arrives at a beach house for the holidays, and while Samantha is cooking, Curtis and Hannah play out on the beach. Suddenly, Hannah looks in the distance and signs the word storm. Curtis turns around and sees a massive storm forming, just like the one he sees in his dreams. Samantha comes out, and Curtis looks back at her to confirm if she's seeing it too. She nods. It starts to rain, and Samantha is shocked to see that the rain is thick and brownish, like motor oil, just as Curtis mentioned before. She looks up and sees that the entire sea has pulled back, and a massive tsunami is forming. Curtis calls out to Samantha, and a shocked Samantha just says, "Okay," affirming that Curtis was right all along. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.